Good afternoon and welcome to Spotlight On, the Inauguration Reaction. I'm your host, Meg Fullwood, and joining us today are several members of Richland Student Media and Richland Student Government, who will be sharing their thoughts on the inauguration of President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Thank you all for joining us. First up on today's conversation is the inauguration of Vice President Kamala Harris. Let's listen to her take the oath of office.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely,
that I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
that I will well and faithfully discharge
that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right.
So Vice President Harris is the first woman to hold the office of Vice President in the United States. She's also the first person of Black and Asian American or Asian heritage to serve as Vice President. What are your thoughts? Anybody like to go first? Barbara, what do you think about this?
Oh, I'm very glad that finally we took a further step for women and for women of color to finally hold office and be part of the government. Since the government represents us, it's only logical that it also reflects how we are. We're not all white, so it's just logical to start getting people of color, and that way we can be more inclusive in our government.
Wonderful. Angela?
Going off of that, America is commonly known as a melting pot. And so saying what Barbara was saying as well, it's great to see that there is more representation of people of color, not just within our vice presidency, but also the cabinet as well.
Great. Dara, did you have thoughts on the matter?
I do. I would go with what Angela said is, we have this multicultural cabinet that's been proposed, and then Kamala Harris becoming vice president. It's just it's a whole new world under this administration. Really thrilled about it.
I am one that notices little details, and I don't know if you guys saw, but there were two Bibles that she was swearing in on, two Bibles. One of them, I looked it up. One of them was from a family friend, and the other was that of Thurgood Marshall. And I take that as that Vice President Harris understands the gravity of what she is doing and who she is in history. And as a prosecutor, I expect her to hold nothing back. She is gonna take the bull by the horns and run with it. At least that's what my hopes are. So I was very pleased to see it, not just for my fellow women, but also for the multinational people of the world.
Her purple jacket had significance. I don't know if you guys were aware of that. Barbara, do you know the significance of her jacket?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but it is purple. So, and that will be the mix of red and blue, which are the colors that represent the parties. And there was this theme in the inauguration of a sense of unity, since these past few years, there's been a lot of clash between the parties. So that's why she wore purple, and also to bring everybody together.
Oh, that's beautiful. I hadn't even thought of that. The things that I had read involved Shirley Chisholm, who was an African-American woman who ran for president back in the 70s. And purple and yellow, I believe, were the colors of her campaign. And so her purple jacket apparently was a nod to Shirley Chisholm, which was pretty cool. And then, oh my, well, The Simpsons, who have seen so many things in the future through pop culture. When Lisa ran for president, she too wore purple and her pearls. So there were a lot of people that wore pearls while they were watching the inauguration and their chucks. Anybody join in that celebration?
Any good sorority girl of any team wears her pearls with everything.
That's right.
So yes.
Very good. Very good. Awesome. All right. Well, let's move on. Next up, we're going to discuss President Biden's inaugural address. In it, he called for unity and healing in the face of many challenges in our country. Let's listen to a clip.
In another January, on New Year's Day in 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. When he put pen to paper, the president said, and I quote, "If my name ever goes down into history, it'll be for this act, and my whole soul is in it." My whole soul is in it. Today, on this January day, my whole soul is in this, bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause. Uniting to fight the foes we face: anger, resentment and hatred, extremism, lawlessness, violence, disease, joblessness, and hopelessness. With unity, we can do great things, important things. We can right wrongs. We can put people to work in good jobs. We can teach our children in safe schools. We can overcome the deadly virus. We can reward work and rebuild the middle class and make health care secure for all. We can deliver racial justice, and we can make America once again the leading force for good in the world. I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I also know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle between the American ideal that we're all are created equal and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, demonization have long torn us apart. The battle is perennial, and victory is never assured. Through Civil War, the Great Depression, World War, 9/11, through struggle, sacrifice, and setbacks, our better angels have always prevailed. In each of these moments, enough of us have come together to carry all of us forward. And we can do that now. History, faith, and reason show the way of unity. We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect. We can join forces, stop the shouting, and lower the temperature. For without unity, there is no peace, only bitterness and fury. No progress, only exhausting outrage. No nation, only a state of chaos. This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge, and unity is the path forward.
The president's calling for unity. Is that realistic, considering the events that transpired after the election and the events that led up to the insurrection of the Capitol? What are your thoughts, Kelly?
Meg, I'll take it from there. I hate to sound like a wet blanket, but I don't think there's ever been unity. There's been calm and there's been small ripples, but I don't think the surface has ever been completely flat. So can we go from giant tidal waves back to small ripples? Yes, I believe we can. And even if we can just get to small waves, it would be better than being at tidal waves like where we are now. And he didn't say in this clip, but later, and I'm not sure what part of the address or where he was addressing, he said that everyone should be treated with dignity and respect. And if he caught anyone that worked for him doing the opposite, that they would lose their job immediately. So I think he's taking that very seriously and very seriously trying to create some kind of at least workable peace. Because right now it's just families fighting and people, old friends, just being disappointed in each other, and it's just it's everything's falling apart. So he's at least trying to get the edges of the puzzle back together.
Well said. Thank you. Angela, what are your thoughts on the speech?
I think that Kelly brings up a grave reality that racism has always existed in America, and we see it on a systemic level as well. And as much as I would like to hope that there is going to be more unity, I think there is always going to be the racial tension that we began to see heightened in the previous year, especially with the attack at the Capitol. And so I think that with Biden's presidency, there's a lot of hope that we can look forward to. But at the end of the day, there is the grave reality that politics is something that greatly divides the country, and bringing up families and differing politics or views, now having 70 million people vote for Trump. I think it's not just relaying that you might vote for the Republican Party, but it could also have underlying concerns for a person of color, or other ideologies that other people may believe in when they vote for the other party. And I'm not just saying the other party being the Republican Party, but that could also be the Democratic Party. So finding unity is crucial, and I hope one day we can begin to be a united part.
The other part of that equation was his call to action. What does that mean to you guys? There was a call to action. I mean, it was in a way it was hearkening Kennedy's "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." With this call for unity, I mean, what does that mean for all of us? Dara, do you have any thoughts on that? I kind of moved to another question, but.
Well, I think I can kind of roll in what I was thinking about the last one. I was really glad to hear about the call to unity. I mean, after the big waves that Kelly was talking about, it's nice to turn around and have a new vision. Like, here's where we've been going, the really tumultuous direction. Here's where we can go. And, I don't know if people are going to jump on board with that, especially if, Biden wasn't their candidate. But I have hopes that as he, for example, rolls out some organized things to deal with the pandemic, and we begin to see maybe some progress in that area, that even the folks that don't like Biden will have to admit that things are better, and that even though they wouldn't vote for him in another election, so I'm hoping that will kind of bring the pendulum swing down a little bit. It's just maybe having the actions bring good fruit that he's proposing.
Good. Barbara, what are your thoughts on the speech?
I think that it was nice to acknowledge that there's a problem, like the America isn't perfect, like there is racism and all that, and how I was surprised that he acknowledged it that way, because when I hear thoughts of unity and all that, many people assume that there already is some, when in reality there is none. So I think that acknowledging the problem was a great first step to the uphill battle to find a sense of unity or even a sense of calm, like a sense of calm that we haven't had before in many cases, especially in this past 4 years. So I think that was a really nice part of the speech. And also the call to action was really important because it's not enough having good politicians. We also have to have a good social structure. And if we don't follow the laws, or if we don't reach a point that we're not going to go straight to a fight, we won't be, even if there's like the perfect person as a president, it's not going to work.
It's going to take all of us doing something. Kelly?
Meg, I was just going to say about the call to action. You and I have discussed this a lot. There needs to be more civic education, because, you know, Donald Trump, and he said it, straight up said it in speeches, that he liked the uneducated and the undereducated, whether that was through their own choice or by no choice of their own. If people don't understand their civic responsibility and what all the different parts of government do, they're never going to be able to see the big picture and to see that, well, yes, I don't like this candidate, but he's helping the country. And that, you know, I've read multiple articles that show that, you know, the people that voted for Biden, the more liberal someone is, the bigger the picture they see. So I think as far as our call to action, it is to, as far as those of us that are staff or faculty, we have to teach our students how to be more civically engaged and how to understand and what to understand, and to be able to answer their questions, and to teach them it's okay to have questions. And then our students need to pass that on to their friends and their peers and start those difficult conversations without actually being confrontational. You know, there are plenty of times that I will see somebody on Facebook and I will just go, yep, not going to answer them. And I'll just delete that comment, you know, because I know it's just going to open a can of worms. But we all have to be able to sit down and have an adult, calm discussion and agree to disagree if that's the case.
Yes.
But just starting the conversation helps. And, you know, just starting the conversation about race relations and about racism. And, you know, we said before that there's going to be big waves of unrest and little ripples of calm. Well, when we had those little ripples of calm, there was an awful lot going on under the water that people that look like me did not know about. And so now I kind of have to sink my head under the water a little bit and open my eyes and realize, wow, there is a whole world that I did not understand. I did not know. You know, I knew growing up as a female, it was tough, and that you had to, you know, look in your back seat before you got in the car, and, you know, all those kind of crazy things that they taught us. But my parents never had to have the talk with me or, you know, tell me about what to do if police pull you over. It was just a given that we knew what to do. You know, so those are the kinds of conversations that need to happen, along with the civic responsibility and being civic leaders in our communities.
And civic responsibility certainly is voting, but it's also beyond that. It's taking time to educate yourself on the issues. It's being willing to have those conversations like Kelly was talking about.
It's writing letters to congressmen. It's making phone calls. It's helping somebody out that, you know, you have an extra banana in your car and you see somebody who's hungry, you roll down your window and you give it to them.
Yeah.
It's a banana. It's not your life savings, you know.
And we've got to get away from this red team, blue team football mentality. I hope we'll be able to do another conversation about ranked choice voting, which I think could be an interesting thing to bring into the conversation. Yeah, Dara.
You know, speaking of the red team, blue team, I don't know if anyone noticed that there was a red carpet and a blue carpet behind Biden when he spoke. So very subtle. You know, thanks for bringing up the color, the purple and all that. It's like I wonder if that was just a subtle nod to unity, even in the colors of the carpet back there.
I hope so. Yeah. Any other thoughts on the speech? Or, you know, it was also interesting too. There were several references to Lincoln's second inaugural speech. Hearkening Our Better Angels was one reference. And then I believe in the invocation, there was a mention with malice towards none. And I believe there may have been even a reference to Langston Hughes in there as well. But there were a lot of writing speeches is a unique thing as well, and it's been nice to hear language used in a nice way. That was part of my takeaway. All right, well, there were a lot of great performances at the inauguration too. Lady Gaga sang the national anthem, J-Lo sang This Land Is Your Land, and America the Beautiful, and Garth Brooks sang Amazing Grace. Let's listen to a clip.
Broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. From sea to shining sea, una nación bajo Dios indivisible con libertad y justicia para todos. Let's get for you and me.
If I can ask you to sing this last verse with me, not just the people here, but the people at home, at work, as one. United. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. Amen.
Great performances there. How did you guys feel about that? Did give you a little choke. Were you a little choked up? I got a little choked up again, just hearing it all over again. Angela, what did you think?
I thought that they all performed beautifully, and it just, I think the one that they all stood out to me really, but what I really appreciated was Jennifer Lopez's performance when she did have a little bit of Spanish in there. And alongside with speaking Spanish, she also had a line that said, "This country was made for you and me." And so, again, just going off of the theme of unity, I thought that was very beautiful and just reminding us again that we're a country made of all different cultures and different people. So, but again, I enjoyed all of their performances, and I think they were all very heartfelt. And like you had mentioned, it got me choked up again. So, just wonderful job from everyone, really.
Yeah. Barbara, what did she say in Spanish?
Oh, she said like, I'm trying to figure out how to translate it, but it's like, we're all together in a nation under God. And she also mentions that something about justice for all, that we are all, that in this country we all get equal justice. And I think it was pretty significant that after she talked Spanish, she sang the bit about a nation made for you and me, because I sort of interpreted as she's saying, well, that means that everybody is welcome. Like immigrants who come here, they, well, that's the American ideal. Although sometimes most of the time we don't reach it. But I think it was a really nice sentiment that she added that part. And pretty much Angela stole what I was about to say. Like, I totally agree what she said. Also, I saw how she had like this monochromatic white dress, and I thought that, well, not only was there was this theme of monochromatic shades for both of the women in the inauguration, but she was wearing white, which also represents the suffragists.
Yes,
so it was kind of a nice nod.
Yeah. So I believe what she said in Spanish was quoting the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation of under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, exactly that. That was now that I think about it, like you mentioned it, it was definitely that.
Yeah. Boy, that was really powerful. Dara, what was your reaction?
Oh yeah, it got me here too. It was, um, words almost leave me. It was so cool. Lady Gaga, I expected like all four stanzas. And so that was kind of nice to have it kind of truncated a little bit. And it was just this beautiful moving where she hit a note a high note I wasn't expecting. It was like, wow. And so that was just incredible. I loved what Jennifer Lopez did, of course, and just kind of echo what you guys said. And then, especially what I've appreciated about this inauguration, God was in it so much, and so, there were several very moving prayers along the way, and then, we had the Amazing Grace. I just feel like God is invited to the picture in ways that maybe he hasn't been in a long time. And so that was very moving for me.
Nice. Kelly, what was your reaction?
I'm going to go through all three in order. First, Lady Gaga looked wonderful. Although I did think this was a Mockingjay at first. I was like, okay, well, that kind of makes sense because she's the rebel and there's been victory. But when she opened her mouth to sing, the feelings that came to me were power and victory. And yes, we did it, And then J-Lo, I got hope, I got joy, and I got unity. And then from Garth, I got peace and calm and love. So I think the three of them kind of ran the spectrum of just wrapping all the feels up all together. And the all white, I didn't even think of that because I was still stuck on the Mockingjay.
Angela?
And there was kind of like a juxtaposition between Garth Brooks and Lady Gaga. No, wait, not Lady Gaga, Jennifer Lopez, since Jennifer Lopez was decked out in all white. And then afterwards, it was Garth Brooks who was dressed in all black. And just going off of what Kelly said too, I think when I heard his performance, it brought a lot of calm. And it was great to see visually as well before he left the stage that he was greeting Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Mike Pence. And so again, just seeing unity within pop culture intertwining with politics, I think is a very strong stance, especially when we talk about politics and young people, because they do look on to, you know, popular culture or celebrities to really, you know, push their way forward. So I think it was great to see that.
I was glad to see culture back on the national stage. I'd been missing that. I'd been missing live music. I've been missing a lot of those things. And it was, anyways, it was touching to me to see the performances back up for All America again. So speaking of that, speaking of culture, we're going to wrap up our conversation today with a conversation about 22-year-old poet Amanda Gorman, who recited her poem, The Hill We Climb. And we're going to hear it in its entirety. So let's watch that one more time.
Mr. President, Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is hours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the wind-swept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
I've heard the poem a couple of times. It seems I pick up on something different every time. Dara, let's start with you. What was your reaction?
Oh, again, this whole inauguration has been one that just gets me right here. It's and this was part of it. The first time I watched it, I was actually busy doing something else, so I didn't see her. But it's just this, I just love watching the fluid motions. It was, communication at so many different levels, the poetry, the visuals, even what she was wearing. And I loved her use of alliteration, rhyming, and even those unexpected where she would end a sentence but not really do her voice down like you would tend to, but keep going into the next word. And so it was just a unique, beautiful experience watching her and listening to it.
Beautiful. Angela?
Yes, I thought she had a very powerful message to say, and a few lines really stuck out to me when she mentioned that we're not a country that's broken, we're just a country that's simply unfinished. And so I think that says a lot about the tenacity we have as a nation to really come together again and to find peace together. And so I thought that was very powerful. And also, just after hearing her message, it just felt like we're not giving up, and really it's just a moment for us to get back up and to really conquer. So I really appreciated that message, and I just felt like it was really empowering to really bring both sides together again.
Barbara, what were your thoughts?
Oh, I like what happened to Dara the first time I watched it. I didn't really completely pay attention to it, but once it finished, I realized like, wow, that was a really important part. I should have really paid attention. And when and like what you said, Meg, every time you hear it, you find something new. This time when I heard it, I loved the part about how victory is not about the blade, about who wins. It's about the bridges that we build, and how that does to the sense of unity. And another part that I thought was really important is that she mentioned that quiet doesn't equal to peace. necessarily, which was really important, especially to the current Black Lives Matter movement, when we are realizing that even though we thought that everything was all right, like racism was ended because we got a Black president, everything is fine now. In reality, it was not the case. And we're realizing and going through this reinterpreted, seeing how our history and how we need to change and better ourselves for a better future.
Kelly, what was your reaction?
Well, you guys already took all the best ones. So I would just want to point out that that young lady is 22 years old. Mm-hmm. That is just a few years older than most of our students. And she just did a poem in front of how many millions of people?
Yeah.
So if you, and I'm going to quote her poem, if there's something that you really believe in and that you are really passionate about it, you have to, quote, be brave enough to be it. Mm-hmm. And don't let anything stand in your way. And that's my challenge to our young students.
Wonderful. You know, we think about poetry sometimes as being a frivolous art or something that may be set to music. Maybe it's a tool for musicians, but to hear the spoken word, you know, words matter. What is your, you know, can words change the world? Words for good, words for ill. I don't know.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely words can change the world. Words can change individuals. Just for example, if a student comes in and says, I just can't do math, they're setting themselves up to not do well in math. But if they say math is a challenge is something that can be overcome. Mm-hmm. Something you can't do, you're just stuck. And it's just a matter of a couple words. So, you know, everybody has to take those negative words and those toxic words out of their vocabulary. You know, we saw in the last 4 years, how many times did someone in the administration say something and you're like, oh, that was a bad word to use, you know, maybe that wasn't the greatest one to use, you know, even defund the police. Mm-hmm. Defund, was the word defund really the best word? Because now people think you're taking all the funds away, when really I think what they meant was reallocate. It doesn't quite come off the tongue quite as well, but you know, there's a difference, and what people can understand and what people will see, you know. So you just got to take that negative away and always try to project positivity into your own life and to other people's.
Thank you. Angela, did you have thoughts?
I agree. I think there is definitely a lot of power behind the words that we decide to choose. And going back to the poem, I think that she did a beautiful job of really planting in words and choosing words wisely to really depict a picture that wasn't triggering, which I think that when we talk about defund the police, I think the automatic trigger for people is, oh, well, we don't want the police at all, whereas that may not necessarily be the case. And so there is, you know, a meaning behind each word that is chosen. And I think that's incredibly important for all of us to understand, is there is much power in what we can say and what we can convey through just our speech.
Barbara, what are your thoughts?
I agree. I think that word definitely inspires action, like how the way that we speak and the way that we use words is really important and really meaningful. Without it, that's how we communicate. Like without it, we wouldn't have as many actions as we have. Like that's what sets us apart from other species that doesn't have the same spoken communication. And I think that her poem is going to be studied forever. And like she's going to be. It was such a powerful speech that I think that if it is not already being taught in English class, I don't know what needs to be taught.
Yeah, it certainly would be a great point for conversation as we're doing today. Dara, what were your thoughts on her use of language?
Well, I think I said a lot of that before, but I think of, words again. Just the whole inauguration is like giving a vision for what can be. And so I think she did a good job of, kind of drawing us in with her metaphors and her ways of speaking that, kind of throw you off. You weren't quite expecting her to say the next word, but so I don't know if that works with dropping things into your subconscious, but it might, to listen to those type of words. I even think of, in this kind of realm, what we tell ourselves about ourselves or tell ourselves about other people, like that self-talk. Can we like look at other people as the other and, they're my enemies? Or do we change the conversation, which I think is what she was trying to do, and begin to try to put ourselves in other people's shoes, be thankful for them instead of treating them as enemies and so forth. But she wrapped all of that up in just this beautiful package that I agree with Barbara. They're going to be teaching that in English class from here on out.
Beautiful. Yeah, I was going to mention self-talk as well, and I'm glad you did, because the things we tell ourselves, and as journalists, the way we use language, it can be poetic. It can, the choice of words. I hope that gives us all inspiration in our writing, whether for news stories or for creative endeavors. But anyways, thank you all for joining us. I hope we'll keep the conversation going, moving forward, and with your friends and with your family. And it was great having you guys here. So thank you for joining us for the conversation. It'll be posted on richlandstudentmedia.com at some point in the future. So for Spotlight On, I'm Meg Fullwood. Thank you all for joining us.